us continue with our discussions on the outcome-based educations. In outcome-based educations, we have course outcome, program outcome, and program objectives. Let us first look at the program objectives, which is commonly known as the PEO. You know that the program objective is closely related to the visions and missions of the higher learning institutions. It is referring to the program, meeting the needs of the stakeholders. The assessment and evaluations of the program objective is normally referring to 3 to 5 years after graduations of the students. A program typically will have 2 to 4 program objectives. Now, when establishing the program objectives, we will need to look into the missions and vision statements of the institutions of higher learning. You may acquire the missions and visions of the university from their official websites. Look into the missions and visions. Observe what is constituted behind the statements. What are the indicators to measure the achievement of the missions and visions? The missions and visions represent the goals or objective of the institutions of higher learning, and it normally reflects the value of the institutions of higher learnings to the stakeholders. The missions focus on today and what the IHL does, while the visions focus on tomorrow, what the IHL wants to become. Ultimately, the missions and visions outline the desired conditions of the IHLs, offering values to the stakeholders. Now, when the program objective is closely related to the missions and visions, that means there will be a strong correlations between the programs and the stakeholders. Theoretically, whichever program being offered under the same IHL will make contributions to achieving the missions and visions of the IHL. Otherwise, the relevant program should not be there in the first place. Let's say now the IHL has decided to offer a program. Now this program supposedly will be a part of the strategy achieving the missions and visions of the IHL. Therefore, the program should have the program objectives closely in line with the missions and visions. Now, when you want to construct the program objectives of the program, you will need to look into how does your PEO related to the missions or visions. You need to identify who are the stakeholders. Where do you foresee your students 3 to 5 years after graduations? What are their role in the organizations and community? And how do they contribute to the achievement of the missions and visions? When a program is specially designed to meet the requirements and the demands of the stakeholders, that means it is very community-based, not only towards the students, graduates or alumni, as this is only a part of the stakeholders. This also involves the financing bodies, local authorities, as well as the society and communities. The higher learning institutions, as well as the program, should give positive impacts to the society and the communities. Now, the latest development as required by the IEA is that we cannot omit the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which have been identified by the United Nations as a blueprint for the peace and prosperity of the peoples and the planet. These 17 Sustainable Development Goals will require actions and cooperations of all the countries in our planet for the benefit of the planet as well as the global society. That means as a member of the global society, all the countries are obligated to offer contributions in achieving those sustainable development goals. These are the agreements between the countries, and the relevant awareness should also be created within the institutions of higher learning. We will have to practice this from the ground within the program. Therefore, in our PEO statement later, there should be some elements of the sustainable development. This is going to be beneficial to the local community as well as the global society. Now that you have established the program objective statements, we will look into the program objective measurements. What are the indicators to show the program objectives are being achieved? From whom we should measure the achievement? Where and when to measure? How to measure? What are the methods and tools to be used to do the measurements? And also, what are you going to do with the data collected? What you see here, your program objective is closely related to the missions and visions of the university or the faculty. These are the desired conditions of the institutions of higher learning. Now, when you establish the PEO statements, you would like to offer positive contributions to the community and society. The latest development will require you to incorporate the Sustainable Development Goals as a part of the PEOs. And why do you need this to be at the PEO level? It is because you are not looking among your students. You are also looking at the graduates that you produce. You would like them to also practice and contribute into the SDG here. Since we are doing the educations, there should be awareness among our graduates to make possible of our country contributing to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, when you establish your PEO, you will require some measurements. This is for you to do some self-review, whether the program that you have designed meeting its objectives. You need to know how the measurements is being done, when it should be measured. How do you define the attainments of those PEOs? There should be some indicators to show the attainments of the PEOs. These indicators need to be explicitly established. It should be objectives, allowing us to identify which PEO is not attained. With that, we can still do some improvement in terms of the program design for better achievement of the program objectives. Next level, it will be program outcomes. These are the outcomes that we anticipate from our students upon completion of the program. This is referring to 1 cycle of the academy, which in the engineering program, it is typically 4 years. First, we talk about the PO development. We can refer to the graduate attributes and the professional competency, known as GAPC, IEA version 4. What are those actually? IEA stands for International Engineering Alliance. GA stands for Graduate Attributes, and PC stands for Professional Competencies. Now, the latest versions of this document, it will be version 4. You can download these documents from the internet by typing the relevant keywords. This IEA GAPC sets the international benchmark for all the engineering programs, engineering technology program, as well as the technology program in terms of the requirements for the academics as well as the requirements for the professional practice. Now for engineering program, there will be countries under the signatory of Washington Accord. The graduates of the program offered within those countries are recognized among all the signatory countries. Now, what are the requirements for the programs to be recognized? This GAPC document outlines the graduate attributes that needs to be fulfilled by the engineering programs under the signatory countries. There are 11 in total. All the countries will need to meet those requirements, and these graduate attributes will define the breadth and depth of all the attributes which are considered to be essential as a graduate engineers working in those signatory countries. They standardize everything. Since Malaysia is one of the signatory countries for the Washington Accord, we want our graduates to have the ability to compete with the engineers from the other signatory countries. Therefore, we will have to make sure all the programs, the engineering program offered, meets the graduate attribute as defined by the GAPC IEA version 4. You will need to constantly update with the latest versions of GAPC IEA. Version 4 is being published in 2021. They will update the required GAPC from time to time. You have to make sure your programs always update with the latest versions of the GAPC requirement. Since they have already defined the desired graduate attributes, this makes it easy for us to establish our POs. We will have to make sure our PO is fully in line with our GAPC, specifically GA. The professional competency defines the requirements for the recognitions of the professional engineers. As far as a program for the institutions of higher learning concerned, more focus should be on the graduate attributes. Now, having the graduate attributes known, we can totally design our program outcome to be same as the graduate attributes. What we need to know is to digest the requirements from the graduate attribute and put them into the implementations within the program curriculum as well as the delivery of the programs. Normally, we will have the PO statement totally identical to the graduate attributes. Now, having the PO statement established, we will know exactly the expectations that graduates should achieve in each PO. There should be appropriate verbs. We need to identify the domain, whether it is cognitive, psychomotor, or affectives. And also we need to identify the highest taxonomy levels to be achieved. There will be mappings of your POs to your PEO. There should also be mapping of the courses, specifically the course outcome, to the POs. And then if you study through the GAPC documents, there will be knowledge and attitude profiles, complex problem solving, complex engineering activities, sustainable development goals to be incorporated within the PO statements. What does this imply? It means that all this will have to be incorporated within the program. There should be a good variety in terms of the knowledge and the attitude profiles. There will be complexity in terms of the analysis and problem solving, as well as the activities related to the engineering. and there will be sustainable development to be incorporated within the program. We shall discuss in details on this later. Next is about the PO measurements and deliveries. You will need to consider what, when, where, and how to measure the POs. Definitely there will be measurements. How do you know the POs are achieved? What kind of measurements you're going to use to measure the attainments of the POs? Where do you get the data? When or how frequent you do the measurements? Second, you will need to know what, when, where, and how to deliver the POs. This one is referring to the teaching and learning activities. Consider how your curriculum helps to achieve those POs. What kind of teaching and learning activities involved in meeting those POs? Also, how to verify the results of the PO achievement. We are referring to the triangulations. The meaning of triangulations is that you cross-check the result from different perspectives as a process of verifications. This helps you to determine whether true attainments is in place. When you look at the PO statements, it is not only about the scope. The expectations and the level of achievement are also clearly specified. In terms of the delivery of your program, you will need to make sure you fulfill the relevant standards. If you look at the graduate attributes as outlined by the IEA, they have standardized everything in different categories. There are 11 graduate attributes in total. For engineering program, we are talking about the Washington Accord. For engineering technologies program, it is the Sydney Accord. Whereas Dublin Accords is meant for engineering technicians programs. They have outlined the graduate attributes for different categories. You will see differences in terms of the expectations from different programs. The main emphasis here is for the complex problems, as compared to the other program, focusing mainly on the applications as well as the practicalities. With that said, normally we will look into the highest taxonomy levels, particularly for the cognitive domains. And there should be a good large portions of those higher thinking orders in the cognitive domains. All this needs to be taken into account when designing the curriculums and the teaching and learning activities.